The biggest mistake that people make with respect to intellectual property is they wait until they're at a stage where all of these things already have some economic value, but you have to be thinking about it before that. My name is Abdi Aidid. I'm a professor at the University of Toronto Faculty of Law. I'm the Canada Research Chair in Artificial Intelligence and Access to Justice. I'm also the former Vice President of BlueJay, a Toronto-based AI company that does legal prediction. You got to think about IP right from the beginning, okay? So even before you have anything of value, you have to start protecting it. It's ensuring that anything that you work on that feels like it's getting close to an invention, you should really consider whether there's patentability at issue. And then anything about your visual identity, like trademarks, you absolutely should register right away. I think there's a separate question too about how you should be thinking about using other people's IP. So it's really important, especially if you're in a data-rich kind of field where you're ingesting data, maybe using training data. You need to be very attentive to the state of play because intellectual property is in flux, and what you don't want is to find out that you're on the other side of the line when the dust eventually does settle. Startups, you should be looking for legal service advisors that are as tech forward as you are, right? So look at the firms that are saving money and finding ways to economize by leveraging AI solutions. Look for lawyers that fully understand the environment that you're operating in. You can start to make choices as between lawyers that are tech forward and lawyers that don't fully understand the environment. I would say there's a couple things that startups should look out for when it comes to regulation. The first is recognizing that for the most part in Canada, the way that we make laws is that people get a lot of notice before the laws go on the books. You can pay attention to what's percolating through Parliament, what ends up at second reading, for example, and know that it's largely going to pass, so you can anticipate some of these changes and get an early jump on them. It's really important for lawyers to think internationally, right? When you're advising a client, you don't only need to have a good understanding of the laws of Canada, but you have to have a good sort of 360 picture of the legal challenges they face, which means some knowledge of the legal context of their back home. Because one big problem that lawyers fall into is very often they take for granted that people are accustomed to practicing and to doing their work in an environment that's substantially similar to our own. That's not necessarily true. It's definitely not true for intellectual property and a lot of the challenges that immediately face technologists. Make sure that you have a good understanding and a good shared understanding with all of your partners and stakeholders. Quite a lot of the disputes that arise in the startup context are those where a relationship has gone awry. And those are perfectly avoidable so long as you paper it up, so to speak, and you have agreements that perfectly reflect your intentions. And so the first thing I would say is don't take any relationship for granted. Understand that they do sometimes deteriorate, and you want to protect yourself in the event that that happens. I'm really excited about the possibility of just solving problems quickly and intelligently. I think that right now, we need to kind of figure out which startups are we going to bet on, which ones are we going to try to navigate towards the future. And in my view, it's the ones that are most attentive to social problems. I'm interested in people figuring out things like legal services, healthcare, figuring out things about public safety, especially thinking about ways that we can develop economically. And so that's what I'm keen on.